All right, welcome to another Enable flavored Fusion Hangout on Air. So we have Taylor Stein here. He's a Fusion evangelist. I'm Andreas Bash. I'm a 3D printing research scientist here, also longtime Enabler. So recently, early September, I think it was around the 2nd of September, the Fusion team released a new version that kind of rearranged a lot of things on the screen. So there's a lot of new functionality kind of hiding out in Fusion, but things have moved around a lot. So Taylor's going to walk us through where some of the new stuff is in Fusion, and also show us some of the kind of more advanced techniques involving using surface modeling, so things like what Blender and Mudbox Maya can do. But also coupling that with parametric features. All right, welcome to another Enable flavored Fusion Hangout on Air. So we have Stein here. We have a window open. Sorry about that. All taken care of. Okay, so with that, I'm going to fire up the screen share, and Taylor will take it from there. Sweet. Share that up. Bring up the Fusion.
So we should be good to go.
Assuming
everyone can see it. If we aren't seeing it, definitely shout and let me know to stop talking. So like Andreas mentioned earlier this month, we had a big update inside Fusion360. So any of you that are familiar with the tool, you'll notice some drastic things that are different. And there are some significant updates that will probably be really beneficial to those of you that are using it within Enable. So I'll go through about 3 or 4 things in the update, covering really the biggest things that matter and what's new, and then at the end we'll get into some more complex workflows. So one of the biggest changes that you'll see is that when you launch Fusion, it'll open up a blank document by default. For those of you that aren't familiar with it before, it used to kick you to a dashboard where you could do data management and comment, like, and really just collaborate with other people. And most people that we worked with, they really want to be straight in the design environment. So right now when you launch Fusion, it takes you directly into a blank design. Again, furthermore, it's untitled. So before, when you created a design, you had to give it a name and a place to put it in before you might have even known what you were doing. So this allows you to start with a blank design, do whatever you want, and when you're done, you can save it, toss it, and then you get to choose where you save and what you call it. It makes sense for those of you that haven't seen Fusion. It's kind of a duh thing, but it does make sense for Fusion. It's a good upgrade from what it used to be. Additionally, with that, there's a new data management system. So if I click on this upper button on the upper left, the Open Data Panel button, it will open up this small data panel, and this is where you can really do 90% of all the data management that you need to do within Fusion. So instead of having to open up a dashboard, you can do this all right here in Product. So as you can see on the left, on the top left, I have all my projects. So I have a lot, but these are all the projects I'm working on. If I need to switch to a different project, I can do that. But I'll stick within the Enable project. And now within here, I can look at all the different folders and files and whatnot. And I can open them, insert them, do anything. So for example, if I wanted to open this one right here, I can either double click on it, or I can right click and choose Open. And that will open it up in a new tab. We'll wait for that to come on down. And it's pulling it in, and there it is. Additionally, I could also insert something. So if, let's say, I wanted to insert this design file into this design, all I have to do is right-click on it and choose Insert, and it would make a copy of this and place it into this design right here. So that's how some of the data management works. You'll see you can take a look at project members here. You can invite them on the upper left. You can upload data right here, and this is how you can take a look at the data, either in list mode or grid. If you really want to have the full dashboard experience, so all the things that you can't do in here, like liking and reverting a file to an older format, or to an older version rather, you can click on this button right here. If you double click on this, it'll launch it in a web browser. So that whole dashboard experience will be in an actual browser, kind of like how it felt. And that's really the side panel right there. A few other things that I want to point out are, one thing that I think is really important is public linking. So before, to share a design with someone or share just some geometry, you'd have to invite them to the project within Fusion 360. They'd have to have an account. It was a kind of a long process. But now, if you want to share a design with someone, all you have to do is right-click on it in the data panel, and you can choose Share Public Link, and it'll open up this dialog window. This is the first time we've implemented it, so it's fairly basic right now. But you can check this box to share the latest version with anyone using the public link. So we'll check that, and this is a unique URL specifically for this design. And one thing to remember is this is the latest version. So as you make updates to this, it'll get updated. So if you upload version 10 and you work on it for a week, you'll always have the latest version up there. What will be coming out, I believe, in the next release is the ability to say, I just want to upload version 10. And then it'll stick with version 10, and you can keep working and re-upload whichever one you want. So this link right here, I can copy it. I can also check the box to allow it to be downloaded. And then I can also require a password if I want. So pretty basic stuff.
Let's turn off the password and go ahead and just walk through.
So we'll turn off the password, and I'll copy the link right here. And I'll just open a incognito window to show you how this would work if I was anyone else. I'm not sure why it's...
I think it's down there. Let's see here.
There we go. So here's an incognito window. I can paste it in. So I could share this link with anyone. It's unique. And what it does is it loads it up right here using A360, kind of on the back end. And it'll load what we call a large model viewer. So that's what's loading right here. And it's an interactive 3D viewer right here in a web browser. So you don't need to download any plugins or anything. It'll work right here in the browser. If I had an assembly, I could do things like explode it. So I could explode the assembly, take a look at it. But right here in a browser, I can tumble it around, go to certain views, and do other things like inspect what's in here. The most important thing is probably the ability to download it. So you'll see that you can choose what file type you want to download. By default, it's the Fusion archive. But if I want something else, I can choose it from the list. And because this is on the cloud, it'll use the translators and translate it for you and then download it. So if I know I wanted a step file, I could choose step, hit download, and it's going to ask me for an email address so that when it's done translating this file for me, it'll send me a link to download it to that email. It can't do it instantly, but this is a way for it to do it for you. But if you're doing an F3D, it will download it immediately. So that's the public link. Things that will be coming are being able to upload a unique version. So I could say I just want to upload version 10. And then also there will be the ability to upload something and have some sort of timer on it. So I could say I upload this for a week and let it be downloadable for a week, really can tailor it to whatever you want. Or you could do something like this where it's up there for good. I'm going to take a minute to pause, see if there's any questions coming in. If not, I can keep on moving through this.
None so far.
Great. So that is the new data panel for data management and public sharing of a link, and I think that's probably one of the biggest improvements is being able to share it with someone. It doesn't matter, they can just view it right away. The other thing I wanted to show was some of the API that we released. So it's the first part of the API was released, and how to access it, you can go to the File menu on the upper left, which is new, and go to Scripts. And it'll show you some sample scripts. So these are sample scripts that ship with Fusion. These were all created internally. And I'll just show you how these work. So for example, I could go to the spur gear. I can hit Run. And it will run this custom dialog window that we defined in the script. So we could say we want a 1 centimeter thick gear. I'll hit OK. And it will go through and create it. One thing that's really nice is that it doesn't just plop it into the design, it actually goes through and creates each feature in the timeline. So based on the parameters I choose, it creates the proper sketch and then extrudes it. And if I want to change that, I can always right-click on one of these and edit it. So if I wanted that to actually be 0.5 centimeter, I could do that as well. I'll get into a little bit more of the API. Let me undo that. I go back to scripts. I'll go to Spur Gear and I'll choose Edit, and it will launch Brackets, which is the IDE for editing and creating the code for the API. So here is all the code. You'll see that it has some nice color coordination. It's really, should be nice to use and built into Fusion, or at least added, bundled with it. As far as creating your own, if let's say I create my own script, I can then edit it, and it comes with the boilerplate code that you'd expect. So all the things that you need in every script to run is included. You'll see right now the API is just JavaScript, but the next language to be supported will be Python, followed then by C++. So today just JavaScript. And right now most of the scripts that you see are scripts. They're really just things inside Fusion running commands that you could do in the product. But there's definitely the potential to run things from other sources outside of Fusion. I think that's where it gets really, really interesting. Lastly, there's also a debugger. So if I click over here and click debug, it should launch a debugger where I can step through, let's see here, some developer tools and walk through my code. Never quite see it look like that, but
oh, it launched in my E7 emulator.
Gotcha. There we go. So that's some of the API. As far as the documentation for it, let me go to, let's make a new tab right here. If I go to fusion360.autodesk.com, I'll show you guys where the resources are. There's really, I was rather surprised with how great the resource was for the API. So if I go to Learning at the top, and then I click on Programming Interface, there's no link directly to this. You'll see the URL doesn't change, but you can access all this right here. And there's really thorough documentation. So if I just go to Welcome to the Fusion API, it starts describing, what is an API, how does this work, what's included, what's new. And so, for example, here's some new objects that are in the API. And if I go down to the user manual, there's some little things you can walk through. So for creating and debugging your first script, there's a lot of information here. If you want to get really technical, you can open up the reference manual, go down to objects. There's a whole list right there. I can also, let's see here, close on objects. There is somewhere in here a full object model right here. If you want to get really technical, there's all this, which is really amazing. So there's the entire object model. A lot of information. I've yet to go through all of this, but I think it's something to definitely check out if the API is something that interests you. There's an entire team that spent a lot of time creating this, so I would definitely highly recommend that you check this out. I think it has a lot of potential for being used inside Enable as far as creating custom 3D models that are parametrically driven and whatnot, things that we already kind of discussed before, but now the API gives that some legs to really run. So those were some of the bigger things that I want to cover in the update. The last thing that I wanted to show you guys was the step-by-step tutorials. So when you launch it for the first time, it will have this banner across the front telling you about them. If you closed out of it and you want to find it, you can go to the Help menu and choose step-by-step tutorials, and it brings up this window right here. And we broke down the tutorials into form. So do you want to learn about creating the 3D model, function, some more kind of top-down design approach, and fabricate, so 3D printing, toolpath generation, and then data management. So if I go into form, I have these 4 tutorials that I can go through, and I could start anywhere. I could start with this one, and it will open up the proper file at the proper point in time with some step-by-step instructions. So you can see right here, I can get started, and it just tells me what to do. I can select spline, click next, and I can just follow this step for step to really walk through these tutorials. It's a great way to learn if you don't quite like YouTube videos or the other learning resources online. It's something nice that was built directly into the product and is new to this release. If you want some tutorials, I highly recommend you check them out. We're also really interested in getting feedback on them. So if you do have feedback, definitely share it. I can provide my email at the end or something. We can send that out with this for feedback and whatnot. I love to hear it. We're always looking to improve them, and a big part of that is user feedback. So I'm happy to answer any questions and relay any feedback to the team that created them.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
I was just wondering, do you think you guys could link some of those YouTube tutorials into this event post?
Which YouTube tutorials exactly?
Well, you said there were YouTube tutorials about Fusion360, and I was just wondering if maybe you guys, after this is over, could put a few links in the comments for this Hangout.
Sure, yeah, we can include some videos. There is just the general YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Autodesk Fusion360, and that will take you to the Fusion360 YouTube channel where we have different playlists. Some of them are tips and tricks that me and my coworkers put out, and some of them are more in-depth, just full-blown tutorials. So I would definitely recommend that we'll share this at the end, and maybe some other hand-selected videos that people might like.
Well, I was I was just looking for a URL. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, we can share this out.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. So that was really what I wanted to cover for what's new in Fusion. What I can do is also cover some kind of more advanced workflows that include some parametric capabilities as well as some more free-form design, something like you might be familiar with in Rhino or Blender or something like that. So if there aren't any other questions, I can jump right into it. Are we good to go to move forward?
Unless anybody in the call has any questions, we can move on.
Okay, great. So a common workflow is something where you combine, like I said, freeform with the parametric. So I'm going to show you a workflow that I go through a lot. So what I'm first going to do is I want to create a freeform surface that's above this ground plane, somewhere above it, that I can manipulate by hand and then essentially extrude some parametric sketches to that surface. So that does a few things. It lets me have freeform control over it, and because I have this timeline at the bottom, I can always go back and edit that surface, and everything will update. So if that doesn't make too much sense, I'll walk through the workflow, and if you have questions, definitely shout them out. The first thing I'm going to do is just create an offset plane so that I can create my surface body above this ground plane. So I'll offset this maybe just 1 inch. So now I have a nice construction plane 1 inch off of the ground plane right here. And I will go into create form. So this allows me to do what we call sculpting within Fusion360, do some free-form design work. And under the create menu, here are my primitive shapes I can make. I'll choose a plane. And like anything else, I need to choose what plane I want to create this on. And so I'll choose the one we just made. And I'll look at it from the top. And I'll click on my center point. One tip is if you don't know what to do, if you stop moving the mouse, Fusion's really good at telling you what it wants, so specify the center point. So I'll click once at the center, and I'll move this out right here. Doesn't really matter how big this is, you just want it to kind of act as a blanket above the parametric features that you'd be extruding up to it. It just has to be larger. So I'll make it something like that. And here I can now choose how much this is subdivided. So I can drag these sliders to increase the subdivisions that way. I can drag this to increase or decrease the subdivisions going that way. As far as the subdivisions go, the smaller the faces are, the finer control you're going to have in that localized area. If you have larger faces spanning more area, you'll have more gradual changes throughout your 3D shape. I can go in and add some symmetry. So maybe we want some symmetry down the length. So this green line indicates that everything on the top is going to be symmetrical on the bottom. If I wanted it to go the other way, I could do that as well. But we'll just create it like this. Let's actually add all the symmetry here. And I'll hit OK. And now I can manipulate my, surface however I want. So using the Edit Form tool, which is the default Modify tool, it's also at the very top, I can select a face, I can select an edge, or I can even select just a single vertex. And you'll see that if I select this face, these yellow ones are being selected, telling me that due to the symmetry that I have, these are also selected. I I have these manipulators right here to do whatever I want with the geometry. So if I want to move it in a single direction, I can use these arrows. Maybe I just want to move it down, so I can do that. What if I also want to rotate it? I can use this rotate manipulator to rotate it that way. I know we're getting a little bit freehand right here, but we'll see what we make at the end. I have everything from single direction translation to planar movement, rotation with these right here, as well as scaling. So I can scale in a single direction using these single lines. I can scale in a plane using these corner ones, or I can do a universal scale at the center here. So I can scale those in or out. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm seeing that there's an arc along the two ends, and then there's a center arc. How can you know the actual radius of that arc? I'm not exactly seeing that there.
So in the sculpt environment, there's a limited amount of things that you can dimension and get precise readings on. When I do translation, I can say how far I want to translate it, but inside the sculpt environment, I'm not able to say that I want this arc to have a certain radius. I can't do anything like that inside the sculpt environment.
But there is another environment in which we can set that up.
Yes, so you wouldn't be able to manipulate this arc in a different environment, but if you were creating a very precise surface, we do give you the ability to sketch something very precise and loft or sweep or extrude or do whatever you want that way. This is just the more kind of freeform aspect of Fusion 360.
Okay, thanks.
So I'll click OK, and I'll finish form. So now I have this surface right here. And what I'm going to do now is create a sketch on the ground plane. So I'm sketching on this plane right here, and what I'm going to do is just project this surface onto that ground plane. That way I know when I'm sketching what is above it. So I'll hide that, look at it from the side. And what I can do now is draw maybe just a center rectangle, and I can dimension this. So now that I'm in the solid modeling environment, I can dimension this however I want. Maybe we want 2.75 inches going down the length and 3/4 inch wide. So I'll lock that in, and I can hit Stop Sketch. So I didn't need this projected outline. It's just nice to have it as a reference. Now that I have my profile, this is where we can start combining the two together. So under Create, I'll choose Extrude. I want to extrude this surface, and I can enter in a specific value, or for the extents, I can change it to 2 and say that I want to extrude that profile to this surface. What I might want to then do is I can add, for example, a taper to it. So maybe we want it to draft up. I can enter in a negative number, maybe a 2-degree draft angle to have it taper up that way. And I'll click OK. And if I hide the surface, you'll see that this profile was then extruded up to that surface with a specific draft angle. And the great thing is that everything I do is captured in the timeline, and every parameter that I use is stored. So if I open up the Modify menu and go to Change Parameters, you'll see that every value I've entered has been stored here. So maybe I want to change, let's see here, the taper angle. I can create my own parameters, so I might want to create one called draft angle, and this will be degrees, and I'll make it -4. I can assign the taper angle here to just my variable draft angle. And when I hit Tab, it updates to -4, so I can control everything with this. So if you have a design, you want to have uniform, let's just say corner. I can set up some variables. So maybe I know that every fillet I do, I want to have an 1/8 inch radius. I can enter that here. And then whenever I have a fillet, I can just set it equal to this variable and drive everything with one thing. That's something we've kind of seen before on these hangouts right here. So also what I mentioned is that we have the timeline at the bottom. So if we don't like this surface here, I can go back and right-click on that feature in the timeline when I created that surface and choose Edit. And now I can make whatever change I want. So maybe I want to make all of this a bit more exaggerated, a bit higher up. I can drag this up and really stretch it, and we'll see kind of the ghosted view of what it used to look like. And when I hit Finish Form, everything updates. So it essentially recalculates everything in the timeline. It recalculates the sketch and the extrusion. Where you can really start doing some interesting things is I can go back. If that's too high, I'll lower it again. I'm not sure why my edges aren't showing up, but we'll roll with it. I can push these back down, and also finish form. If, let's say, this whole surface is just too tall, I would just then edit this construction plane. So instead of making it 1 inch off the ground, I can make this, 3/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch. And then everything should update. Some more solid modeling, parametric things you might want to do. So I could go in and shell this. So if we wanted this to be hollow for whatever reason, under Modify, I can choose Shell. I can select this face to essentially hollow it out from that face, rather than making an Easter egg, really just remove a face and apply a uniform wall thickness. So I can give it a wall thickness of, I'm in inches, but if I know I want it to be 1 millimeter, I can just enter 1 millimeter. And now I have 1 millimeter wall thickness. And again, this is something that I could create as a parameter. So if I go back to parameters, I'll make one called wall thickness. Set it equal 50 millimeter units in here. We'll make it 1 1/4, and I'll set that shell back to my variable if I want. You don't have to do this, but it's a nice, clean way to do it. And another way that this timeline comes in handy is, let's say I want to add some fillets to these outer corners right here. I can select those, but you'll see that when I start creating them, I'm now chewing through that wall thickness. So I can apply, for example, my, let me actually also grab this one back here, and let's see if I can add an 1/8 inch. I'll add an 1/8 inch radius fillet, and you'll see that I no longer have that wall thickness that's uniform. To fix this, I could add 4 more fillets on the inside, or I can just drag my fillet to the left of the shell, hopefully. Let's see, it doesn't quite like it. So instead I can delete it, roll my playhead back to before I perform the shell, and apply those fillets right here. So I'll select these 4, enter in my radius, and now I can step forward, and that shell now honors those fillets that I had in place. So it's a really great way to reduce the amount of work that you have to redo. Normally, if you got yourself in that sticky situation, you'd have to essentially undo before you perform the shell, redo the fillet, and if you had a longer workflow, that would be a pain, whereas here you can kind of rewind back to a certain point, make a change, and then apply it like that. So I could add another parametric feature here. I could add an 1/8 inch fillet to the top. And here I can do everything that I want that you would expect in a parametric modeler, but I also have this freeform surface that's really tied in the middle that's driving kind of the guts of this design.
One other quick question for you. So you were able to uniform the width for the fillets by going back. Is there a way to actually increase the thickness asymmetrically? Specifically, okay, if you have a 1 millimeter wall thickness all the way around, is there a way to go and actually increase, I'd say increase the radius for the fillet on the inside so that you can build that wall out in case you have fatigue issues along corners?
Let me see. So if I understand correctly, like increasing this fillet here.
Yes.
To do that, what I would do is instead of applying the fillet before the shell, let's see if we can drag it forward. I would do it after and then apply just a separate fillet to the inside. And then that should be able to be at whatever value you want. Let's see if that works. Kind of a live demo, right? So I could apply a larger fillet on the inside there while I still maintain that same outer fillet. Does that answer what you were going for?
Exactly like that, yes.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions coming in?
This is all still so new to me.
Yeah.
Clint, did you get a chance to watch our previous 3 Fusion training sessions? Because if you didn't, you can go back and watch them.
I have seen them, but mind you, I'm doing 3 and 10 things at a time, so I'll have to dedicate more individualized attention to it in the future.
And no, we don't have any questions coming in.
Okay. I think I can unplug it for you. That was everything I had. Andreas, was there anything else you wanted to go over or anything? I think there's no more questions hanging out right now. But
Yeah, I think that's everything on the tutorials front. So we'll post this in the Enable community with some links to some of the resources that Taylor pointed out and Taylor's email. And feel free again to hit both of us up with questions. Taylor uses this a lot more than I do, but it's my bread and butter CAD tool. So I'm
Actually,
getting
before
it.
you guys go, I just ask one more question.
Absolutely.
yeah.
There was a bit of comments a while ago. There was an invitation to use a metal printing facility to increase or decrease the fatigue on hands that you would still print with plastic. Towards that end, so I've been working on the individual bones of the hand to scan them in so that you can actually 3D model them. I was looking for a way to be able to cap the individual bones at the joints themselves instead of using the standard structures that are already being used in the hand. Is there a way, if you go back to that rectangular box, is there a way to shave off one, like the exterior wall, a uniform thickness, so that you'd be able to separate it out? Yeah, exactly. So that you could separate it out and actually have that casted in metal. The actual application would be that you'd cast the outside shell or the outside wall in metal, and the rest would still be in plastic, so that you could take advantage of the fatigue, but also be able to print in increased lengths as the child, for example, would grow, and you'd need the longer plastic bones. Does that make sense?
A bit. I'm trying to fully grasp.
So my understanding is, are you talking about? So I guess let's break this down. So first, in terms of kind of operations in the CAD tool here, are you asking about how to kind of move this entire surface kind of inwards towards the centroid of the model, basically decreasing thickness only from the outside? Is that a correct interpretation?
Okay, so the left wall that's demonstrated in the model currently, yes, that one plus the corners themselves attached to that side to be able to. So if it's set at 1 millimeter currently, with the walls having increased thickness, let's just give it 2 millimeters. Is there a way to shave it off proportionately 1 millimeter all the way along the blue highlighted part and have that separatable, so that then the unhighlighted model can stay as one STL and the blue can stay as a separate STL? Does that make sense?
I think.
So that they would basically fit back together if placed back.
So I think, are you asking about this in kind of with an application of using, so if this form represents, say, some phalange on a finger, are you talking about these being the wear surfaces of the joints?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, I understand better now. Okay, so you're talking about how to remove plastic to basically create a metal wear surface insert?
Exactly.
Okay. Something like that, if you were starting by modeling that geometry in a solid body tool, I would probably use multiple bodies for that. There's also, you could probably, if we're just going to kind of take a very rudimentary, very simple crack at this, you could take a plane, offset that, say, a tenth of an inch, or we'll make that 50 thousandths here. We're going to set that back, you can then split the body using a tool here. So in this case, the tool is the plane. And so now what we've done is we've separated this off just with a very, very simple planar cut. So if you're just going to, say, glue these two things together, you could do that. You can also now, if you wanted to, say, add some alignment features, something like that, say adding some sort of a alignment pin, you could add something here.
Well, unfortunately, the wear pattern would be more radial, so it would also need the rounded edges to also be shaved off.
So okay, right. So so the other thing you can do is you can also use a surface like the surface that we began with here. You can use that as your parting tool. So to demonstrate real quick, let me go ahead and just make. I'm just going to make a cylinder. Just going to go ahead and mute out that first body that we were working with. Just going to make a cylinder here. Up that up a couple inches. Going to retrieve that surface that we were using earlier. So again, if I go to Modify, go to Split Body, select my body, and then select the splitting tool. Hit OK. We're going to now have two bodies whose surfaces reflect that, or have pulled their shape, their topology from that surface that we structured earlier. So in terms of a workflow for what you're talking about, creating those kind of properly contoured wear surfaces, for a phalange, I'd probably try using kind of sculpting surfaces like that. That might be one way to do it. There are definitely quite a few different ways to approach that particular problem, but kind of using the tools that we've kind of talked about in this particular demonstration, using that kind of surface split of a body might be a good way to do it, and then you can save those as separate STLs. And also add, say, tolerances or recesses for adhesives or other alignment features, things like that.
And that's exactly why I was asking about the radius earlier, the freeform, so that you could properly meter out the measurements of that wear pattern for the phalangeal tip.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, if you wanted to get more...
I didn't mean to hijack it.
Oh yeah, no worries. No, that's exactly why we do these.
Yeah, there's also more powerful things like, you can get really specific and say, I want a plane through 3 points. So you could choose 3 points right here. Now you have a construction plane that runs through those 3 points, and you could use that to split if you want. Another thing you could do is you could sketch on some sort of offset plane. So you could always sketch on this plane and project something like the inner walls of this onto this plane and use that to help create a curve that you could extrude out into a surface that you could use to split that. So there's a lot of ways to do that.
Okay. I'll definitely try these different ways in the future. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Clint, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Just wondering, so have you made any hands yet?
Yeah, I'm on fourth hand now.
Cool.
But these are mostly just files that folks sent to me and asked for me to print off. But yeah. We're working in PLA, ABS, and we're starting to work again in nylon. We kind of had a meltdown earlier.
Ah, okay. I was just wondering, so just for curiosity's sake, are you saying that these people were recipients or just other people that just wanted to have something printed out?
Just people who wanted something to print it out. I had one request for somebody to develop a hand, but I asked for measurements and never heard back.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But I guess hopefully I'm still relatively new to the group, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, so Clint, I can tell you more about sort of the info booth type stuff for our group if you want to IM me sometime.
Certainly, absolutely.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you.
Alrighty. Well, any other last questions?
None have come in. People are pretty quiet today.
Alrighty.
Oh,
well,
wait. Let's see. We just got something from Joshua Cohen.
Alrighty, man.
Well, I guess it was just a comment, just that he was new to Fusion and have been watching the videos, and I think he was going to say something about appreciating them or something.
Oh, sweet. Well, good. We enjoyed doing it.
Good to hear.
Alrighty. Well, again, feel free to reach out to me. Reach out to me in the community. We're gonna post some follow-up information, some of the videos that Taylor mentioned, also Taylor's email. So feel free to hit us up afterwards with questions. And I guess with that, we'll wrap this one up. All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.
Take care.